Today, I bring a topic that has been stirring up the global scene and will, in one way or another, impact how the world operates: the latest BRICS meeting. But you may be wondering, what's so important about this meeting? Well, besides being the group's first gathering with new member countries, this summit brought discussions to light that go far beyond economic partnerships. Imagine a world where a new global order starts to take shape, with powerful blocs that no longer follow the Western model, an alliance that not only challenges but also positions itself as an alternative to everything we know. And we're not talking about a distant future, we're talking about now. Every decision, every strategy discussed, even the simple fact that this meeting took place in Russia carries a series of signals pointing to profound geopolitical changes. So, what does the BRICS expansion mean for the world? Why did this meeting carry such significance, and what can we expect going forward? In today's video, we're going to dive into each essential point from this meeting and decipher how every decision made there could alter the global landscape. If you want to understand why this group is gaining so much strength and what's at stake, stay with me, because now we're going to dig into the details. To grasp the significance of this meeting, we first need to look at the new countries that are now part of BRICS. Until recently, the group included only Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. But at this summit, 6 new members were officially added: Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Iran, Ethiopia. This expansion carries strong symbolism. These countries represent different regions, cultures, and even political systems, suggesting that BRICS is expanding its reach and perhaps its ambitions. Each of these new members brings its own complexities and national interests to the group. Saudi Arabia, for example, has close ties with the United States, but also a history of regional disputes with Iran, now part of the same bloc. Meanwhile, Argentina, in an unexpected move, withdrew right after the election of Javier Milei, who rejected the country's integration into the group. This shows how decisions within the group are directly influenced by internal changes and individual interests. The entry of these new countries is not merely about numbers, but what they represent. BRICS is no longer an exclusive group of emerging powers. It is beginning to shape itself as a bloc capable of uniting diverse countries seeking an alternative to the Western system, strengthening a message of autonomy and multipolarity. This movement sends a clear signal. BRICS's strength lies not only in its original members, but also in its expansion and the potential to embrace new voices that challenge the hegemony of the United States and Europe. Russia's choice as the host for this BRICS meeting was no accident. This detail carries a subtle yet powerful message about Vladimir Putin's status and Russia's position on the global stage. Following the invasion of Ukraine, Russia faced heavy sanctions and a wave of isolation from Western countries. However, by hosting this gathering of world leaders, Putin sends a clear message. Russia may be isolated by the West, but it still has allies and has no intention of yielding to this pressure. For Putin, this meeting is more than a diplomatic matter. It's an opportunity to demonstrate that Russia remains an essential player in the global arena. Around 36 countries attended the event, including influential leaders like Chinese President Xi Jinping and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The presence of these leaders reinforces the idea that Russia still holds space and influence outside the Western sphere. Moreover, the meeting took on a distinctly anti-Western tone, with discussions ranging from a possible alternative currency to the dollar to economic and strategic cooperation aimed at reducing dependence on Western financial institutions. This display of unity among countries that refuse to follow the rules imposed by Western powers strengthens Putin's image as a leader of a bloc seeking to challenge the global status quo. The meeting showed that despite all the pressures and the damage to his image in the West, Putin is not isolated and remains capable of attracting support and building alliances that question the established order. It's as if BRICS has become a platform of resistance, a way of showing that the world no longer revolves solely around Western powers. One of the most notable aspects of this BRICS meeting was the absence of Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Known for maintaining close relations with BRICS countries and advocating for a multipolar vision, Lula surprised many by not attending the event, citing a minor domestic accident as the reason. In his place, Brazil was represented by Foreign Minister Mauro Vieira and BRICS Bank President Dilma Rousseff. Lula's absence sparked a series of questions about Brazil's positioning within the group. On one hand, Brazil seemed to signal caution by vetoing Venezuela's entry into BRICS, a decision that indicates a willingness to distance itself from alliances with regimes that have ideologies strongly antagonistic to the West. This move suggested a possible pragmatic alignment, indicating that Brazil is seeking a position of neutrality rather than full commitment to the bloc. At the same time, Dilma's reappointment as head of the BRICS Bank for another 5 years symbolizes Brazil's weight within the group, but also raises questions about how far the country is willing to engage in direct confrontations with the West. After all, Brazil's foreign minister emphasized democratic values and sovereignty in his speech, underscoring that Brazil is a Western country aligned with these principles. Brazil seems to be at a crossroads. On one side, there's the appeal of a bloc that challenges the status quo, and on the other, the need to preserve strategic relationships with the United States and the European Union. In his post-meeting speech, Lula reiterated his criticism of sanctions and reaffirmed support for an alternative currency to the dollar. Yet, Brazil's veto of Venezuela and rejection of joining China's Belt and Road Initiative suggest a cautious path, one that doesn't completely break with the West. Saudi Arabia is another country whose stance raised questions during this BRICS meeting. Although it was officially admitted as a member, Saudi Arabia's participation in the bloc is far from a clear commitment. The country sent a low-profile representative, the Saudi foreign minister, who avoided direct involvement in the most strategic discussions and did not attend the high-profile sessions. This reserved positioning suggests hesitance in fully aligning with the BRICS agenda, especially regarding the anti-Western stance and the potential creation of an alternative currency to the dollar. Saudi Arabia's hesitance makes sense in the geopolitical context. The country has a complex relationship with the West, especially with the United States, with whom it shares a historic alliance and strategic interests. Additionally, it has recently promoted closer ties with Israel and has a long-standing rivalry with Iran, another new BRICS member. Joining a bloc that adopts a position opposed to Western interests could endanger these relationships and compromise the neutral position that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman envisions for Saudi Arabia's future. This strategy reflects Saudi Arabia's intention to avoid direct involvement in confrontational alliances. The country is more focused on developing its economy, diversifying its investments, and strengthening self-sufficiency without jeopardizing partnerships with the West. For Saudi Arabia, the interest in joining BRICS may be more about strengthening its image in a multipolar world than a real commitment to the bloc's agenda. Thus, its indecisive stance during the meeting signals that, even within BRICS, it prefers to maintain a balanced position. Among the most unexpected topics of this BRICS meeting, the rapprochement between China and India stands out. Historically, these two Asian giants have maintained a tense relationship, marked by territorial disputes along the border and strategic rivalries. However, at this meeting, we saw leaders Xi Jinping and Narendra Modi side by side, suggesting an attempt to put these tensions aside, at least temporarily. India, though democratic and aligned with Western values in many respects, has demonstrated a stance of strategic neutrality. While participating in BRICS, a largely anti-Western bloc, India is also part of anti-China alliances in the Pacific, such as the Quad, a coalition that includes the United States, Japan, and Australia. This balance allows India to maintain valuable flexibility, but it also creates uncertainties about its definitive positioning. During the BRICS summit, the rapprochement between China and India was highlighted as a way to stabilize relations in the region and avoid unnecessary conflicts. This agreement signals that, for both countries, the focus is more on economic interests than on territorial disputes. India, an emerging economy attracting global investment, represents a pole that directly competes with China. However, by engaging in dialogue with its rival and seeking peaceful coexistence, India reinforces its image as a prudent and emerging power. Still, this rapprochement is a double-edged sword for the West. On one hand, stability between China and India is positive, reducing conflict risks. On the other, this approach suggests that India may, in time, avoid fully aligning with the Western bloc, maintaining its position of independence and autonomy. In the long run, this rapprochement within BRICS could shift the balance of power in Asia, with possible repercussions for U.S. influence in the region. Beyond the 6 new members already integrated, BRICS introduced a new expansion strategy, creating a category of invited members. These invited countries, such as Turkey, Indonesia, Algeria, Belarus, Cuba, Bolivia, among others, represent an attempt to strengthen the bloc's global presence, broadening its support network and ideological alignment with BRICS's vision. However, this expansion brings significant challenges to the group's cohesion. In fact, bringing together such diverse countries with often conflicting backgrounds and interests does not necessarily mean more strength for the bloc. Each new member brings its own needs, demands, and priorities, which may complicate the creation of a common agenda that benefits everyone. This is one of the great obstacles for such broad alliances. The greater the diversity of countries, the harder it is to reach consensus that leads to practical and effective actions. Even so, the expansion of BRICS remains a strategic and symbolic move. By uniting countries that share, even at different levels, a critical view of the Western order, the group reinforces its image as a platform of resistance to the hegemonic model of the United States and Europe. It's as if BRICS is telling the world, we're not alone, and many countries are willing to walk with us in search of a new order. However, this multiplicity of voices and interests can pose a risk to the bloc's effectiveness. In such a complex global scenario, BRICS's challenge will be to turn this expansion into a true union capable of generating practical impacts on the economic and geopolitical landscape. Otherwise, this large network of invited members may end up being merely a symbolic alliance, unable to enact real changes in the international system. This BRICS meeting makes it clear that we are witnessing a world in transformation, where the division between geopolitical blocs is becoming increasingly evident. On one side, we have the Western powers led by the United States. On the other, a bloc is emerging that openly challenges this hegemony and proposes a new form of cooperation more aligned with the interests of emerging countries and nations that have historically been on the margins of power. The discussions that took place during the BRICS summit, particularly regarding an alternative currency to the dollar, reflect this search for financial and political autonomy. If such a currency were indeed created, it would be unprecedented, directly challenging the dollar's role as an international reserve and sending waves through the global financial system. Although the creation of this currency is still a distant possibility, the very fact that BRICS is addressing this issue reveals an intention to destabilize the dependency many countries have on the financial system controlled by the West. Another important aspect is the implications for global security and stability. The strengthening of the BRICS bloc, especially with the inclusion of countries with anti-Western interests and positions, signals the formation of a new order that could have consequences for regional conflicts and global alliances. Countries like Russia and Iran, for example, might feel more emboldened to challenge sanctions and restrictions imposed by the West, leading to even greater tensions. These changes point to a future where decisions by a group like BRICS could directly impact trade, the economy, and even the stability of international relations. With this meeting, the group has taken a decisive step toward this new reality, consolidating itself as a force to be reckoned with and possibly feared on the global stage. As the world moves toward an increasingly clear division between power blocs, BRICS assumes a strategic position, seeking to reshape the structures that govern the global economy and politics. This latest meeting was not merely a diplomatic gathering, it laid the foundations for a new worldview, where emerging countries and nations with common interests unite in pursuit of greater autonomy and representation. Every point discussed, from the inclusion of new members to the debate over an alternative currency, reveals BRICS's desire to rewrite the rules of the game. Evidently, many questions remain. Will these new members truly align with the bloc's objectives? Will BRICS actually succeed in establishing a currency that challenges the dominance of the dollar? And will Brazil, India, and other countries with ties to the West remain steadfast in the group? Or will they seek a balance between both sides? These are questions that only time and the evolution of international relations can answer. What we can say is that BRICS, with its diversity and complexity, is a reflection of the profound changes happening in the world. It represents the plurality of voices that have long sought a platform and are now beginning to find a stage to amplify their demands. In this shifting landscape, understanding the dynamics of BRICS is essential for anyone who wants to follow and interpret the future of geopolitics. So, if you enjoyed this content and want to keep following discussions about the impact of BRICS and the future of the global order, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And there's more content on the way. Check out the video that's now appearing on the screen for further insights. See you in the next one.